So, back in 2021, I made this video about using Nintendo's N64 Switch Online controller on the actual N64 itself via the Intec gaming adapter. I highly recommend you check out that video first before watching this one to get the full experience, but I'll give you the super quick rundown in case you just need a refresher. In short, it's one of the best ways to utilize the N64 NSO controller to its max potential, and has become my go-to way of playing on the N64. But it contains some minor, nitpicky issues involving the analog stick range and rumble sensitivity that ultimately didn't impact the overall experience too much. Since I've made that video though, multiple alternate solutions to connect the NSO controller to the N64 have started popping up, and today I'm taking a look at one of them to compare with the Intec adapter. But first, we need to talk a little bit about the Intec adapter. Now, don't get me wrong, mine is still perfectly functioning. It didn't explode into pieces or anything. Everything good and bad I said about it still stands. But hoo boy, this company scared me for a bit there. At some point in late 2022, the company website went down for an unspecified amount of time for a makeover, during which you wouldn't be able to find and download the firmware updater for any of their adapters. Which would be a bit of a shame if you bought one of the N64 adapters that haven't been updated to support the NSO controller yet. So I figured since I still had the firmware updater on hand, I could upload and share it publicly in the description of my video in the meantime. But I just happened to upgrade to a new PC around that time, and Windows reported the updater program as severe malware and quarantined it. Now, I'm not a malware expert, do I look like a mite with glasses? But even though I was 80% sure the updater wasn't malware, I literally used it once myself with no problems, I still couldn't in good conscience upload and share something with the potential to be malware online. So good thing the website is back up now as of this video. The download is still being treated as malware, but yeah, tread at your own risk. With that said, here comes a new challenger. This is the 8-Bit Mods Retro Time N64 adapter. It's a bit of a mouthful, but all you need to know is that this is based on the Blue Retro Adapter, an open source project for Bluetooth adapters for all sorts of retro consoles. This project's been around for a while, including support for the NSO controller, so I guess it just flew over my radar the first time. But it seems they've only recently fleshed out N64 support a while after my previous video, and is still receiving regular updates compared to Intec's adapter. I'm pretty sure I could use the Google Stadia controller on the N64 if I had one of those. Since this is an open source project, you could technically build it yourself, and there's plenty of other pre-built solutions you can get from places like AliExpress. This is just one of the more popular commercial offerings from Retro Time, priced at £29.99, which sounds a bit steep, but hey, at least you're probably not paying $13 US extra for international shipping. You're welcome, guys. Anyway, this adapter is pretty simply packaged, and it's very sleek looking. Yeah, so this is just a tiny dongle you plug into the N64 and barely takes up any room. Just about the same real estate as a Wavebird receiver. Definitely a more preferable form factor compared to the chunkier Intec adapter that you have to find a bit more space for. It's got a high quality plastic mode, and there's just a button and LED light on it for your usual pairing purposes. But that's about it, no need for an external port to connect to a computer, but we'll get to that in a bit. This one I have here is preloaded with the latest firmware, and since I'm only planning to use the NSO controller with it, the setup is pretty straightforward. Just plug it in, turn it on, pair the controller like normal, and once again it works just fine as a plug-and-play solution. So what else is different aside from the form factor? Well, if you recall, when I reviewed the Intec adapter, I noted that the analog stick range on the NSO controller is being mapped differently compared to a stock controller, resulting in not making use of the full stick range. In practice, it didn't affect my experience that much, but it was still a weird notable quirk. In comparison, booting up the homebrew controller test again, the Blue Retro adapter maps the N64 stick range pretty much exactly like the original, with the octagonal stick range and all. So yeah, the analog stick issues no longer exist. You can have all the Mario tiptoeing and walking range you want. But what about rumble? To activate rumble on the Intec adapter, you had to plug a rumble pack into the adapter itself, which then relayed its signals to the NSO controller. In comparison, the Blue Retro adapter has rumble built in, along with 4 switchable virtual controller packs. Yes, you heard that right. In the default mapping for the NSO controller, pressing the home button will switch between the controller pack and rumble pack, indicated by the controller rumbling at different intensities. It's a pretty convenient solution, and yes, I did say different intensities. The rumble function on this controller works flawlessly. The Intec adapter, while still supporting rumble, had a small quirk where all the rumble signals got converted to full 100% rumble, so the nuance is lost. And that's not an issue here at all. Everything works as you'd expect. I hate to say it because I did make that previous video, but Blue Retro's adapter has pretty much trounced the Intec adapter in every way. So how about those controller packs? I did mention that there were 4 of them built in. The way you switch between these virtual controller packs is actually through an external settings website that you have to access online, which is probably the one downside to this adapter. You have to connect it to a Bluetooth supported device that has a browser and change the settings and update its firmware from there, which is a bit more technical compared to just physically connecting it to a computer. But you could argue the wireless approach is more convenient. And hey, compared to the Intec adapter, you can tweak a lot of things for the Blue Retro adapter, including the button mapping for other modern controllers. The interface honestly doesn't look the most user-friendly, but since I'm using the NSO controller, I'm already satisfied with the default mapping and don't have to tweak anything in here. But I imagine those who want to remap their Switch Pro controllers will have a bit of a hard time getting used to this. So yeah, overall I might have to change my mind. This is probably one of the truly perfect N64 wireless controller solutions out there. It's super tiny, has rumble and controller pack support built in, and nothing about the NSO controller's functionality is compromised at all. But in the end, if you can't afford the international shipping prices or just happen to find an Intec adapter for cheap instead, that is still perfectly usable. Like I said, only analog stick purists would probably have any issues using the NSO controller with the Intec adapter. And as long as you have spare rumble packs and controller packs lying around and don't mind having this thing sticking out your N64, it is still a serviceable solution. I just wanted to check out the Blue Retro adapter as well and make this follow-up video so you can be more informed and make a decision yourself for which is the better fit for you. Hey, maybe there's another N64 adapter out there I haven't mentioned yet that fits your needs. In the end, I'm still just very glad that Nintendo made this controller so we could finally have what is basically an official Wavebird equivalent for the N64. Now, if only they would restock it more regularly. That would be very appreciated.